false front, false lead from the very beginning.
All right, Colonel Roberts, look forward to having you back soon. God bless you, my friend. Ron Paul's coming up. Colonel, we'll talk to you soon. Have a great week.
Keep your bayonet sharp.
All right, buddy. We'll be right back.
We're on the march. The Empire's on the run. Alex Jones and the GCN Radio Network.
Hi, folks. This is Alex Jones. I'm looking for people that have the wisdom to spot savings, opportunity, and recognize risk. Saving means to make money. The Cal-Ben Pure Soap Company can save you thousands of dollars and give you good old-fashioned real soaps that are triple concentrated and twice as good as what you're using now. Soaps made from vegetable and coconut oils that contain no useless dyes, perfumes, deodorants, or antibacterials. Your risk is the hundreds of hazardous toxic detergents that give you rashes, itching sores, and deteriorating clothing called lint. If you want something better, if you want something you've never had before, you have to do something you've never done before. Getting a free catalog is easy by calling 800-340-7091 or see Calvin on the web at 5starsoap.com. Take charge of your health now by calling 800-340-7091 or see Calvin on the web at 5starsoap.com. Hundreds of nations have fallen to tyranny in the last century alone. This is our last chance to not relive history.
As we're finishing off this agenda, they'll be pulling the rug from underneath Americans at home.
They have tremendous influence on our president and Congress, and they really are calling the shots.
I think it's incumbent upon all of us as American citizens to pay attention.
Fall of the Republic identifies the enemies of our nation, the criminal offshore cartel, hell-bent on destroying sovereignty, and on its ashes constructing world government.
Tim Geithner, Bernanke, they're arsonists. They're asking for more matches. And the Congress is saying, who do we make the check out to?
Today, seems like nobody does care. And right now in Washington, D.C., we have seen a fall of the Republic.
Get your copy of Fall of the Republic on DVD at Infowars.com or watch it online right now in super high quality at prisonplanet.tv.
The folks at eFoods Direct have saved you from the huge price increases on food by buying raw materials ahead and packing your supplies themselves. They haven't increased their prices on great long-term food reserves since last year. With the rising cost of raw materials and gas prices, they can't hold off any longer. As of July 1st, eFoods Direct is forced to increase their prices so they can still ship you the best storable food on the planet. Until the end of June, you can lock in the cost of your food at last year's prices by calling 800-409-5633. Your time is running out to build your supply with the best food on the planet at last year's prices with eFoods Direct. Call 800-409-5633. Prices go up at the end of June. Go to efoodsdirect.com/Alex. Call 800-409-5633 or go to efoodsdirect.com/Alex.
We now take you live
To the Central Texas Command Center.
in the heart of the resistance. You're listening to The Alex Jones Show.
Well, we've got Congressman Ron Paul for the next 20 minutes, and I know he's the hardest working person in Congress, and I feel a little guilty taking his time up, but he's got so much important information, and I know our audience is always chomping at the bit whenever he joins us, normally every month, but now every couple of months because he's so busy. And I've got a whole cornucopia of things to cover here: the wars, the constitutional crisis, the TSA, the dirty tricks the media has been running on Ron Paul. And he's a good sportsman, so he never really talks about it, but I think it needs to be discussed. But obviously he's a presidential candidate. He's the only candidate that is a constitutionalist and that has the solutions to help get this country on the right track. All the others are rhinos or globalists or neocons. And we've got to get behind Ron Paul. But thank God he ran for president, because by running, he's injecting real issues. We've got him for the next 20 minutes, and then he's gone. Sir, there's so much to cover, but the Financial Times says the dollar is seen losing global reserve status. The bankers are engaged in economic terrorism in Greece. Now they're saying it's going to spread here. The recession never ended. You've been proven right again, sir. What can you say, because you're on the banking committees, what can you say about the state of the world economy right now?
Well, I think it's sick. and getting sicker. I did read one article you probably saw today. They said that the dollar, the reserve standard, as the reserve standard of the world, will be coming to an end. Then they added within 25 years. I would suggest that it's going to come much sooner. I just don't believe it'll last for 25 years where it'll be the dominant reserve currency of the world. The big problem, though, is who's going to pick up the pieces. They're getting together, and they're trying to have another international paper currency put together, but then they throw out a few tidbits and say, well, maybe we ought to put a little bit of gold into that as well. But the problems we have are really very overwhelming. They cannot sustain this. So I would say that it's not going to be 25 years, but I don't know, nobody knows exactly the date. But it could come sooner, a lot sooner. It could come a year or two, or who knows when. Depends on what event might arise. But the problem they face is the one that we face in trying to figure it out, is the dollar is a terrible currency. But when you compare it to the euro that has to bail out the Greek economy, all of a sudden people look to us because traditionally we've been so strong economically and militarily. They say, well, at least we can park our money in treasury bills, for another month or two or three. But someday they're going to run out of this, and the momentum will be against the dollar. And not too many years ago, the dollar got in big trouble, and we had to go begging to the IMF, and that was in 79 and 80. People thought they'd lose control. But the time is coming, and that will be a much bigger event than we've just experienced, from 2008 up until now, and the current crisis that we're in the middle of, because I think it'll just drive us that much deeper into an economic crisis.
Well, the Chinese, as you know, just 2 weeks ago said the United States has already technically defaulted. The Federal Reserve is buying most of the T-bills. And for the average layman out there, they're like, why does that concern me? Well, that's the faith and credit of the United States. And that's a tactic I've seen where they'll say 10 years, 25 on something that's going to happen to introduce the idea to you so you accept it but don't panic. A lot of the experts I read and who've been accurate in the past, they say 2-3 years. But then they point out it's a global concerted devaluation, so it's not even that the dollar is going to lose its reserve, it's just going to lose its value.
That's right, and, they're trying to frighten the members of Congress into, voting to raise the debt limit like they did about the bailout. The end of the world will come. There will be a default. But the default is, our country is known for default. All the way back to the Civil War period, they defaulted on promising to pay gold. We did it in the 30s with Roosevelt. Then we did it to all foreigners in 1971. We just say, well, no, yes, we promised you an ounce of gold for $35, but we're not going to do it anymore. So, and even now, they keep saying, well, you have to raise it because we don't want to default on the debt. But if prices are going up for the average person, which they are, and they're probably going up 5 to 10% at least at the minimum, somebody's defaulting constantly. That means they're losing 10 cents on the dollar every year, and it'll get much worse. So that is the default, but that's the deception. Matter of fact, it's deliberate policy because they know what we know. They know the debt can't be paid. There's no way they can meet there's not enough people working to pay off the debt.
But the private central banks, they get first use on the money, and so they're more than happy. And as we get more bankrupt, they're going to be there loaning us whatever the new currency system is in the future, so they come out on top with their new vaunted Bank of the World that George Soros says is going to save us.
Yeah, and they pay 0% interest on it, and then they buy some of this government debt and do these kind of things, and they make 2, 3, 4%. But if you're retired and think you have this obligation to take care of yourself, and say, well, I'm going to have a CD because I can't trust the stocks or anything else, they get cheated because they make essentially nothing on their savings, and then they have to pay taxes on it. Then they wonder why the people don't take better care of themselves, But it's a deeply flawed system. It's a deeply flawed system of money and the welfareism and central economic planning through the Federal Reserve. It's all deeply flawed, and though many of us have talked about this for many, many years, it's coming to fruition, and most people are realizing it. It's also the reason that especially the young people are realizing how much they're being dumped on, and I know you reach a lot of young people as well, talking to how they're getting ripped off. because there's no way, even if they could get a good job, they can't pay off these obligations, but they're not getting the good jobs. So we are really, really facing a major problem, and it has to be a dollar crisis coming in our future.
Well, what about Bernanke last week saying he's puzzled that the economy isn't getting better? You, with total precision, have predicted exactly what would happen because it's sound laws of economics. Bernanke knows full well, as you just said, they know what they're doing, and telling us we're not in a recession. I mean, that's another lie. Congressman, shifting gears into the campaign, you are the only candidate, decades ago telling the truth about issues. Now in the presidential race, the only one who's telling the truth and who has the track record to be trusted. Mitt Romney, who helped write what became Obamacare, the rest of them. I mean, this is a pack of people who are just completely unqualified at this point. We've got CNN ignoring their own polls and running internet polls with 54 people and then showing you for 0 when their own polls show that you won. You're winning most of the straw polls, second in New Hampshire. I hear mainline conservative radio talking about Republican candidates. They won't even mention you, despite the fact that you're right there in the top 3 candidates. That shows that the system is scared of you. What can you say to the dirty tricks that they've been trying to pull on you?
I don't think you could stop them. I mean, they have too much power and control because they own the media and they own a lot of these outlets. So talking to people like you that will get the truth out, but also the Internet is a good way to do this. But as bad as the system is, it still operates reasonably well. That is that, over the years, I've been able to run for Congress and get elected. And now I am still able to compete even up against these odds and these tricks. Because, we can get in and organize, and our numbers are growing. We're able to raise the money that is necessary, and we continue to do that as long as we keep adding volunteers and able to raise the money. We are going to compete, but obviously it is more difficult because there's still a large number of people, if not even the majority, get their information from the evening news, the ordinary news, and from their politicians. And if they can discredit you, you don't get credibility. And last go around, the first 2 major debates, one right before Iowa and one before New Hampshire, they excluded me from the debates. This year, they're not going to be able to do it. So that we have made progress, and that's been because there's a growing number of people who are on to their tricks and are watching them rather closely, and they're going to hear from the supporters if they start doing that. So in spite of the obstacles, our job is to keep doing what we're doing and just gain supporters.
Well, I want to talk about some of the things on the positive front and specifically the websites and how people need to get involved now. But you, at the start of the race last time, weren't even in the top 10. Then you were in the top 4 or 5. Now, out of the gates, you're winning most of the straw polls. You've won the big coveted CPAC 2 years in a row. So Fox cuts to a year-old clip of you being booed. I mean, all sorts of tricks. I mean, it is showing that they're scared of you, showing you are viable. The new talking point is you're not viable and that you're fighting for credibility, which, again, is just a pure hoax. If you just look at the polls and the numbers, they are horrified of you. And we have Jim Tucker and others that have given us sterling intel from inside Bilderberg the last 5 years running. You are discussed every year, and they say even if Ron Paul doesn't win, it's the third rail in colleges now, not liberalism or fake conservatism, but true freedom. You're in the debates. You're exposing the imperial presidency. You're exposing the dollar devaluation. I mean, they are like vampires to a cross, and Ron Paul is the cross. They are scared of you.
Well, I don't know how scared they are. I think they do have concern, but the one place where we think they're revealing that our side's making progress is they're starting to support some of our positions, whether it's backing off on some of this warmongering stuff and saying some things about auditing the Fed. So we're making progress. And what they believe is that if they just appeal or neutralize that a little bit and they can get elected, one of them get elected that supports the same policies, they don't have to follow through with the policy. So they recognize our views are popular, but they also know that you can say a lot of things in campaign, and as long as we elect, their particular kind of people, they don't have to follow through on their promises.
Well, that was my next point. While they're attacking you and saying that you're weak when you're the opposite, they're all, even mainstream media admits that suddenly the entire Republican field is acting and talking like Ron Paul. So when they can't beat you, they try to counterfeit you.